Waiting for others to change or for some kind of shift to take place in the world to restore you to balance won't work without your commitment to take responsibility for changing your way of thinking. If that's left to others, you'll turn the controls of your life over to someone or something outside of you, and that's a prescription for disaster. You must vow, from this moment forward, to see yourself exclusively in loving terms, and to invite love to accompany you 24/7. Here's an affirmation to help keep you on this path. Holy Spirit, guide me now. This simple, powerful statement aligns you with love. Self-contempt or self-rejection cannot distort your balance. You only have love to give away. When you give contempt or rejection to yourself or others, you're a vibrational match to these energies, and they'll continue to appear in your life. Many people blame others or an unloving, uncaring world for the lack of love they're receiving in comparison to what they desire. Any disparity that exists between the love you desire and what you actually receive is a mirror image, a reflection of what you're thinking. Give away hate and you receive hate. Give away love and it has to come streaming into your life. Imagine a container the size of your heart. This container is the sole source of all thoughts. Whenever you think something, you must go to this container, select a thought, and send it out into the world. Using this metaphor, the real issue isn't about simply selecting positive, loving thoughts and having your world shift back into balance. The real issue is what's in the container. That is, what's in the heart reservoir you have inside of you to give to others. This container within is connected to an endless supply of love. You need only turn your thoughts to that source to be filled with love. Love for yourself, love for the world, love for life, love for all others, and most significantly, love for your source of being. Then this is all that you'll have available to give away, and consequently, all that returns to you. It's been said that the difference between all of us living at ordinary levels of human consciousness and those we call saints is that they never forget God even for a single moment. They're cheerful when life is difficult, patient when others are impatient, and loving when others respond with hatred. Why? Because of that container. Ordinary people have a container out of which they pluck loving thoughts in certain circumstances. The saint has an internal vessel that contains nothing else out of which and into which love flows freely. So rather than working on simply changing your thoughts in order to become more peaceful and loving, why not shoot for the moon and think like the saint that you are? Focus on that container within. When you continually say, Holy Spirit, guide me now, you'll see your container overflowing with so many loving thoughts that it's impossible for negativity in any form to alter the balance within. What love looks like through the eyes of a child. Here are some jewels describing what love is from the perspective of a group of 4 to 8-year-olds. As you work to reset the love balance beam of your life, consider these refreshing thoughts on what love is. 1. When someone loves you, the way they say your name is different. You just know your name is safe in their mouth. 2. Love is when you go out to eat and give somebody most of your French fries without making them give you any of theirs. 3. Love is when my daddy makes coffee for my mommy and he takes a sip before giving it to her to make sure the taste is okay. 4. Love is when mommy gives daddy the best piece of chicken. 5. During my piano recital, I was on stage and I was scared. I looked at all the people watching me and saw my daddy waving and smiling. He was the only one. I wasn't scared anymore. And my favorite. Love is what's in the room with you at Christmas if you stop opening presents and listen. There you have it. Look within and around. Listen. Love is what's left over when falling in love fades away, because love is an endless source. Give it away. Share your French fries. Give someone the best piece of chicken. Wave and smile to the universe, and you'll soon know what Victor Hugo meant when he observed, love is the reduction of the universe to a single being. Not only is love what's left over when falling in love fades away, but love defines the source from which we came. Elizabeth Barrett Browning poetically describes the end of life as a return to pure love. She says it this way, "Guess now who holds thee? Death, I said, but there the silver answer rang, not death, but love." And so it seems that love is truly all that's left over.
There is a quiet whisper inside you that has always known the truth, not the truth you were taught, not the truth handed down through fear or form, but the truth that lives beneath all striving, all seeking, all becoming. It is the silent knowing that nothing needs to be added to who you are. for nothing has ever been missing. You are not on a path to become more. You are only on a path to remember. The world, with all its noise and glitter and measurement, has taught you to look outward, to chase, to compare, to climb mountains made of illusions and promises. It has handed you maps to destinations that do not exist. It has placed worth at the top of ladders built by the ego and whispered, only when you reach this place will you be enough. And so you began running toward titles, running toward approval, running toward perfection, running in shoes made by others, carrying burdens that were never yours. But let me tell you something sacred. The moment you begin to look within, to truly pause and sit with the stillness of your own presence, you will discover that everything you have been searching for in the world has been waiting quietly inside your being all along. You do not need to become anything. You only need to awaken to what you already are. You are already what you seek. You seek love, but you are love. Not the conditional kind that is offered and withdrawn, but the eternal kind that simply is radiant, unconditional, unshakable. You are not a being searching for love. You are love searching for yourself. You seek peace, but peace is your native state. Before the world painted you with urgency and filled your mind with restless noise, there was peace, and it is still there, underneath the chatter, underneath the striving. Peace is not a place you arrive at. It is the atmosphere of your soul. You seek meaning, but meaning is not found in doing more or proving more. Meaning is found in being and breathing consciously, in walking with presence, in seeing through eyes that know everything is already divine. You are not here to earn your place. You are here to remember that you already belong. You seek healing, but healing is not something granted by time or effort. Healing is the soft unraveling of what never truly belonged to you, the false stories, the inherited wounds, the borrowed beliefs. Healing is the gentle return to the self that was never broken. You are already what you seek. You are not an empty vessel waiting to be filled. You are the ocean itself, temporarily believing you are a drop. You are not a spark hoping for fire. You are the flame. You are not a stranger trying to find God. You are the breath of God, trying to remember itself. The ego will not want to hear this. It feeds on the narrative of not enoughness. It thrives when you feel separate, small, unworthy, incomplete. It will convince you that joy must be earned and that peace is a prize to be achieved. It will seduce you into believing that your value is measured by how many steps you've climbed, how much praise you receive, or how flawlessly you perform the role you've been assigned. But the soul knows. The soul does not compete. The soul does not compare. The soul does not rush. It simply shines. Your task is not to fix yourself. You are not broken. Your task is not to chase purpose. Your existence is already purposeful. Your task is not to seek something outside of you. Your task is to become still enough to hear the quiet music that has always been playing within your being. You are already what you seek. You have mistaken becoming for awakening. You have confused transformation with accumulation. True transformation is not about stacking more layers on top of your identity. It is the sacred act of shedding what never belonged to you in the first place. The butterfly does not add wings to the caterpillar. It dissolves. It surrenders. It allows what is false to fall away so that what is real can emerge. You are not becoming a soul. You are remembering that you have always been one. The journey you are on is not one of self-improvement, but of self-revelation. The more you seek outside of yourself, the farther you drift from the center. But the moment you turn inward, truly inward, you will find a stillness so profound, a truth so silent yet deafening, that it will shatter every illusion of lack. The light you chase in others is the light you've been dimming in yourself. You are already what you seek. You are the abundance you crave. You are the worth you try to prove. You are the peace you postpone. You are the joy you think must be earned. You are the love you keep looking for in every face, in every gesture, in every echo of approval. You are the home you've always longed to return to. So stop running. Stop trying. Stop bargaining with the divine by performing for a world that cannot validate your soul. You are not here to meet expectations. You are here to embody your essence. You are the mirror, not the reflection. You are the sky, not the passing weather. You are the awareness, not the thought. You are the vast, boundless field in which all experience arises untouched, eternal, sacred. Nothing needs to be added to you. Nothing. Not a title, not an accomplishment, not a partner, not a validation, not a future version of yourself. You are already whole, already complete, already enough. The only thing left to do is to remember. And remembering is not a doing, it is an undoing. It is a melting away. It is a sacred dissolving. It is the quiet choice to no longer chase what you already are, to no longer believe in the lie of lack, to no longer treat your divinity as a distant destination. You are already what you seek. And the world, this beautiful, chaotic, ever-changing world, is not your source. It is your mirror. It reflects what you believe about yourself. It bends to your inner frequency. It echoes the thoughts you trust most deeply. When you live from lack, the world echoes scarcity. When you live from wholeness, the world responds with peace. When you live from love, the world reflects miracles. The world is not happening to you, it is responding to you. And what it responds to most clearly is your inner knowing, that quiet, unwavering knowing that says, I am enough. I have always been enough. I will always be enough. This is not arrogance. This is spiritual humility. Arrogance believes it must become more. True humility bows before what already is. It does not strive to become divine. It recognizes the divine that already breathes through every cell of its being. You are already what you seek. Let that truth land in the softest part of your heart. Let it wash over every part of you that has been tired from searching. Let it reach the part of you that feels unseen, unheard, unloved, and remind it that nothing has ever been missing. There is no destination, only awakening. There is no other life waiting for you to arrive. This is it, and it is already sacred. There is no higher version of you that you must strive toward. The highest version of you is the one who surrenders, the one who remembers, the one who stops searching and starts being. You are already what you seek. And now, in the stillness of this moment, let the seeking fall away. Let the striving dissolve. Let the performance cease. And return to the truth that has always waited patiently beneath every thought, beneath every wound, beneath every desire. You are not becoming, you are revealing. You are not lacking, you are overflowing. You are not separate from the divine. You are the divine remembering itself. You are already what you seek. You have spent a lifetime trying to arrive at peace, at purpose, at fulfillment, as if life were a destination rather than a presence. But you were never meant to arrive, you were meant to awaken. And awakening is not a journey measured in miles or milestones. It is the sacred art of seeing clearly right where you are. The idea that you must reach some future state in order to be whole is the grand illusion. It is the veil that keeps the eyes of your spirit closed to the brilliance of the now. And in this very moment, beneath every thought that says, not yet, there is a timeless voice whispering, already, already alive, already worthy, already whole. To awaken is to hear that voice again. It is to notice the sacred hidden in the ordinary, the stillness between words, the warmth in a stranger's smile, the aliveness in your own heartbeat. It is to let go of waiting and allow this moment to be enough, because it is and always has been. The soul does not live in the future. It does not dwell in yesterday's shadows. It resides only in the eternal now, the quiet center, where all seeking dissolves, where you stop running in circles and begin standing in truth. There's no grand awakening coming from the outside. The sky will not open with thunder to declare your divinity. Instead, it comes like a gentle return, the slow lifting of fog from a mountain valley. One moment you can't see the truth. The next, it's all around you, unchanged, eternal. And you realize you didn't find it. You remembered it. That is the essence of spiritual maturity. The moment you stop looking for something to change you and begin uncovering the changeless one within you. You do not need to transform yourself like some sculptor chiseling at marble. You only need to remove what no longer belongs. Not by force, not by struggle, but by the grace of awareness, by allowing what is false to fall away so that what is true can be revealed. You are not here to become extraordinary. You are here to remember that nothing has ever been more extraordinary than your own being. Even your suffering has not diminished you. Even your pain, misunderstood, resisted, hidden, has not changed the eternal truth of what you are. If anything, it is the very friction that has worn away the masks. It is the very breaking that has opened the window to the soul. What if all the things you thought were setbacks were sacred doorways? What if the heartbreak was a teacher, not a punishment? What if every closed door was grace in disguise? What if all of it, the confusion, the waiting, the ache of being human, was designed not to test you, but to bring you back to yourself? And what if, just for a moment, you stopped asking life to give you more and began asking life to help you see what you already have? That shift, that sacred pivot, is the moment of return. Not return to some former version of yourself, but a return to the essence that has been quietly waiting behind the noise, the divine frequency that never left, never faltered, never broke. The world may have tried to define you by your role, by your results, by your reputation, but the soul defies labels. It cannot be summed up in titles or bound by identity. It is the formless living through the form, the timeless wrapped in skin, the eternal breathing as you. You are not here to fix your humanity. You are here to awaken your divinity within your humanity, to let the infinite live through the temporary, to let the light shine through the cracks, not after they're sealed, but because they exist. This is the paradox of awakening, that your liberation does not come after your healing, it comes through it. Not once everything is perfect, but when you no longer need it to be. Not when all your wounds are gone, but when you stop identifying with them. Not when the noise is silenced, but when you recognize you are not the noise. You are the space in which the noise arises. You are the awareness that watches it all without judgment. You are the timeless field behind every story, every reaction, every identity, and in that recognition, there is power. Not the power that the world chases, the kind that dominates, collects, wins, but the power that liberates, the kind that needs nothing and gives everything. The kind that walks into the world with empty hands and an open heart, knowing it lacks nothing and therefore fears nothing. The person who knows they are already enough no longer competes. They no longer seek to impress or persuade or prove. They no longer barter their authenticity for approval. They simply live freely, fully, and in harmony with the pulse of the universe. Because they know the truth. They are already what they once believed they had to earn. And when you realize this, truly feel it in your being, not just as a thought, but as a resonance. You stop striving and begin aligning. You stop resisting and start receiving. You stop waiting and start living. The seeker dissolves. The striving fades, the shame evaporates, and in its place arises something so profoundly quiet that it changes everything. Presence, pure, grounded, radiant presence. This is not about becoming something new. This is about embodying what's always been true. You don't need another strategy. You don't need more affirmation. You need only the courage to sit in the stillness of your own soul and listen. Listen not with the ears, but with the spirit. Listen not for answers, but for alignment. And in that listening, you will hear the voice of truth. Not shouting, not persuading, but gently reminding you, I have never left you. I have always been here. You are already what you seek. And from that sacred place, you will begin to live differently, not because you are trying to live differently, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of being someone else. You no longer need to wear the mask. You no longer need to chase your reflection in other people's eyes. You no longer need to become someone. You simply need to be fully, freely, truthfully, and that is where the miracle begins. Not in changing the world, but in changing how you see it. Not in altering the self, but in discovering the one who never needed altering. Not in running toward the horizon, but in realizing that what you've been running toward has been inside you all along. The horizon is you. The miracle is you. The sacred is you. You are already what you seek. There is a grace in slowing down, a quiet revolution in choosing to stop rushing toward yourself and instead simply rest as yourself. Most people fear stillness because they fear what they might find in the silence. But the silence is not empty. The silence is where God speaks without words. When you stop filling every gap with noise, you begin to hear what has always been waiting underneath. The sacred doesn't scream for your attention. It whispers. It breathes through the spaces you've been avoiding. It lives in the moments you overlook. And in those spaces, there is a recognition, not a conclusion reached by logic, but a remembrance felt by the soul. You remember that your worth does not depend on productivity, that your being does not need to be justified by doing, that the essence of life is not found in the acceleration, but in the alignment. What if you are not meant to become faster, but deeper? What if the invitation of this life is not to add more, but to live more consciously with less? What if your transformation isn't ahead of you, but beneath you, beneath the stories, the identities, the mental scaffolding you've used to hold up the illusion of lack? Let them fall. Let it all fall. The ideas, the expectations, the image you think you must protect, let them collapse into the truth. There is no danger in letting go of what was never you to begin with. The ego may panic in that shedding, but the soul celebrates. For every layer that drops is another breath of freedom. And freedom is not loud. It is not flashy. It is not something you post about or perform. It is subtle. It is sacred. It is the kind of freedom that comes from no longer needing to pretend. The moment you realize you are enough, without adornment, without performance, without disguise, that is the moment you return home to yourself. And in that homecoming, there is no applause. There is only peace. Not the peace that comes from controlling circumstances, not the peace that depends on other people's behavior, but the deep, soul-rooted peace that cannot be taken because it was never given by the world in the first place. It has always belonged to you. Peace is your birthright. Joy is your essence. Love is your origin. And truth is your nature. You have never been separate from these things. You have only believed the mind's interpretation more than the soul's knowing. But the soul is patient. The soul waits. It doesn't argue or impose. It simply continues to radiate like the sun behind the clouds, knowing the moment you stop resisting, you'll feel its warmth again. And when you do, when you stop clutching your false identities and open yourself to the presence within, you'll realize that what you've been seeking has always been you, seeing through you, loving through you, living as you. You are not a character in this story. You are the awareness that sees the story. You are not defined by your past, your pain, your projections. You are defined by nothing, and that is your liberation. When you realize that nothing defines you, everything becomes possible. You are no longer bound by how others see you. You are no longer limited by how you used to see yourself. You are no longer a reflection of your wounds. You are a revelation of the divine. And in that revelation, you do not need to rise above the world. You are invited to walk fully in it with clarity, with compassion, with presence. This is not about escaping reality. This is about returning to the truest version of it. The world will still try to sell you stories. It will still try to measure your value by standards that were never created for the soul. But you, now anchored in knowing, no longer need to buy in. You don't have to harden yourself to survive in a hardened world. You don't have to dim your light to fit in with those who have forgotten their own. You don't have to explain your peace to those addicted to struggle. Just be. Your presence is your message. Your stillness is your power. Your authenticity is your revolution. Because the most radiant soul is not the one who shines the loudest. It is the one who remembers it was never in the dark. You were never in the dark. You only closed your eyes for a while. You forgot, like all of us do, what you came here to remember. But the forgetting was part of the path. The seeking was part of the sacred spiral. The wandering was the way home. And now you are arriving, not at something new, but at the truth that has always been within you. The truth that asks for no effort, no proof, no justification. The truth that simply says, you are. You are love without condition. You are light without doubt. You are truth without question. And you are already what you seek. So breathe deeply. Let this knowing sink into your bones, not as an idea to grasp, but as a frequency to live by. Let it shape how you speak, how you listen, how you walk into a room, how you sit with yourself when no one is watching. Let it redefine success, not as something to win, but as something to remember the success of living as your truest self, unburdened by shame, untouched by fear, unshaken by comparison. Let it show you that you are not here to prove anything. You are here to embody everything you already are. And in doing so, you become the living proof, not of how much you can achieve, but of how deeply you can remember. You are already what you seek. You always have been. You always will be. There is a moment in every soul's journey when the search softens, when the desperate reaching, the endless questioning, the exhausting pursuit of wholeness simply lets go. Not out of resignation, but out of revelation. The revelation that there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to fix, nothing left to attain. Because the truth, so quietly patient all along, has been whispering from within you, waiting for the stillness deep enough to be heard. And now you have heard it. Not as an idea, not as a philosophy, but as a knowing. You are already what you seek. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetic comfort. This is the purest spiritual reality, the kind of truth that doesn't shout but resonates. The kind that does not try to convince the mind, but dissolves it. The kind that doesn't give you something to hold it, invites you to release everything you never needed. And in this sacred space of remembering, you realize something even more profound. You were never lost. You were only dreaming. Dreaming of a self that was separate. Dreaming of a God outside of you. Dreaming of a future where you might finally become worthy of what you already are. The awakening was never about becoming more. It was about waking up from the dream of not enough. It was about opening your eyes in the dark and realizing the light was never gone. You had only been looking away. And now, as your soul breathes deeper than it ever has before, you begin to feel what can never be taught, the felt truth of presence. Not as a concept, but as the substance of your being. You are not just connected to God. You are the expression of God in motion. You are not beneath the divine. You are the divine remembering itself. No longer does your heart need to beg for peace. It is peace. No longer must your voice cry out for love. It is love. No longer do you wait for a miracle. You are the miracle. You are the evidence of what is holy, not someday, not when you've earned it, not after you've healed everything, Now, in this moment, exactly as you are, you begin to see yourself now with new eyes, not through the filter of judgment, but through the lens of soul. You begin to hold your past not as a burden, but as a sacred map that brought you home. You begin to honor your wounds, not because you are defined by them, but because they revealed your resilience, your softness, your unbreakable truth. And from this place, you stop rushing, you stop clinging, you stop bargaining with life. You start allowing, you start trusting, you start embodying. There is nothing more spiritual than presence. And presence is not something you practice. It is what remains when you stop running. It is the native language of the soul. And now you speak it. You speak it through your stillness. You speak it through your kindness. You speak it through the gentle courage to be exactly as you are, with nothing left to prove. You no longer need applause. You no longer seek validation. You no longer chase enlightenment like it's somewhere far from your fingertips. Because now, you see, enlightenment is not an achievement. It's a remembering of your natural state. It is what rises when all else falls away. And now that everything false has begun to crumble, you stand not in emptiness, but in the fullness of truth. You are not becoming, you are being, you are not searching, you are revealing, you are not reaching for God. You are awakening to the God within you, and in this awakening, life becomes simpler, more beautiful. Not because the circumstances are different, but because your eyes are. You see the divine not just in mountaintops and scripture, but in dishwater, in a child's laughter, in silence, in breath, in the face you see in the mirror each morning. You no longer wait for a better moment. You no longer postpone your joy. You no longer delay your peace. You live now, you give now. You love now, not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer require perfection to be at peace. And the beauty is, when you live from this knowing, you become a quiet light in the world. You don't need to convince others. You don't need to shout. Your very being becomes an invitation, an open doorway into remembrance. Others feel it. They may not understand it with the mind, but their hearts recognize it, because the soul always remembers the soul. This is the great liberation. That nothing needs to be added to you. That your only task now is to be what you already are, freely, unapologetically, with reverence and joy. Let others chase. Let others prove. Let others build ladders to the sky. You are becoming the sky. You are no longer climbing. You are expanding. You are no longer editing your essence. You are expressing it. You are no longer seeking the divine. You are surrendering to the truth that the divine is seeking to live through you. And as this settles into the very marrow of your being, you begin to smile in that deep, ancient way, not because everything makes sense, but because everything belongs. Even the confusion, even the chaos, even the moments of forgetting, they are not failures. They are part of the sacred spiral. You are never off your path. You are always being guided, not toward something new, but back to something eternal. And now you are here. You are in it. You are the flame. You are the breath. You are the presence that no longer needs to chase presence. You are already what you seek. And the journey is not over, but the struggle is. What continues from here is not seeking, but deepening. Not proving, but expressing. Not waiting, but being. You walk forward now, not with weight, but with wonder. Not with urgency, but with trust. Not with fear, but with sacred clarity. And when others ask you what changed, you'll have no doctrine, no formula, no 7-step plan. You'll simply look at them heart wide open and say, I remembered who I am. I remembered what I've always been. I remembered that I am already what I once believed I had to become. And that remembrance, that breath of soul deep truth has set me free. Free to be, free to love, free to live fully. Free at last to just be. And that is more than enough. It is everything. It is everything you ever were, everything you ever will be, everything you already are. There is a whisper in your soul. It's been there since the beginning. Before your name, before your pain, before the world ever told you who you should be, it whispered gently like a breeze through eternity. You are already whole. But most people miss the whisper. They run so fast, trying to fix what was never broken. They scream their questions into the noise of the world, never realizing that the answer never raised its voice. You don't need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. You don't need your life to fall apart to begin seeing clearly. But so often, we wait. We wait until the shout, until life yells through the wreckage, through the sickness, through the heartbreak, through the loss, to finally get our attention. But life is kind enough to whisper first. And if you quiet your mind, even just for a moment, you'll hear it again. It speaks not in words, but in knowing. Not in volume, but in presence. It is the language of your soul, and it never forces itself upon you. It waits with love. It is not punishment that arrives when you ignore the whisper. It is the echo of unconsciousness. When we forget who we are, life becomes louder. Not because it's cruel, but because love will use any means to wake you up. The illness, the heartbreak, the sudden loss, these are not punishments. They are invitations back to your truth, back to your being, back to the eternal stillness that lives behind your story. But the ego resists whispers. It wants a flashing sign, a guarantee, a checklist. It doesn't understand the sacred. Because the sacred cannot be grasped, only surrendered to. The whisper says, let go. The ego replies, not yet. The whisper says, be still. The ego replies, not now. The whisper says, you are free. The ego replies, not until I get what I want. And so life waits until the noise becomes unbearable, until the chasing becomes exhausting, until the mask cracks under its own weight. And when that happens, when you fall to your knees, you don't fall into failure, you fall into the truth. There is wisdom in surrender, not giving up, but giving in to the deeper current beneath the surface of your life. There's an intelligence guiding everything, a love that does not waver. And it's been trying to reach you not through the storm, but through the silence before it. You see, the whisper is always kind. It never criticizes. It never rushes. It never shames, because the whisper is the voice of your soul, and your soul knows no fear. It has never been wounded. It is untouched by trauma, time, or title, but the ego lives loudly. It demands. It justifies. It reacts. It lives in the past or the future, anywhere but now. And it tells you that you must strive to be worthy. That peace is a destination far away. That love must be earned. But here is the liberating truth. The ego is not you. It is a costume, a character, a collection of borrowed ideas you've mistaken for identity. You are not your anxiety. You are not your failures. You are not the name they gave you, the roles you play, or the stories you tell. You are not what happened to you. You are the awareness behind it all. And when you realize this not as a concept, but as an awakening, you return to stillness, to simplicity, to peace. The whisper leads you there. It does not demand change. It reveals who you were before the world trained you to forget. And it doesn't speak in thunder, because it doesn't need to. Only love can whisper and be heard without force. When you begin to listen again, you'll realize the whisper never left. You just stopped trusting quiet things. You started confusing chaos with aliveness. But real aliveness is not noise. It is presence. It is the feeling of being rooted in this moment with no need to escape it. Healing begins in that space, not in fixing your past, but in no longer dragging it with you. Not in rewriting the story, but in dropping the need to tell it at all. The soul does not speak in history, it speaks in presence. That's why the whisper always speaks in now. Right here, not when you get the job, not when they apologize, not when the weight is gone or the bank account is full. No. And when you live from now, you are free from the tyranny of someday, free from the illusion that salvation is in the future, free from the suffering that comes from resisting what already is. Life is not trying to punish you, it's trying to wake you. That's why the whisper comes first. That's why the nudge arrives before the shake. But if you ignore the gentle voice, life may send a louder one. Not because life is cruel, but because it loves you too much to let you sleep forever. You don't have to reach rock bottom to rise. That is a myth created by those who waited too long to listen. The whisper is always offering a gentler path, a way through without the crash. But it requires trust. It requires the courage to follow the invisible, to honor the intangible, to step without knowing where the ground will appear. That's the spiritual journey, not towards something outside of you, but inward, where truth has always been patiently waiting. The greatest tragedy is not in falling, but in pretending you never had wings. The whisper tries to remind you, you are not bound to this earth. You are rooted in the eternal. You are not the small self that clings and worries and controls. You are the vastness behind it, the silence between the words, the breath before the thought. And when you begin to identify with that, with the space, not the structure, life begins to realign. You no longer chase peace like a destination, you become it. There is a knowing inside you that no book can teach. A wisdom born not of intellect, but of intimacy with your own being. And the more you silence the mind, the more that knowing rises, not as noise, but as a calm certainty that doesn't need to convince anyone. The whisper is not for your ego, it's for your soul. That's why it's often missed. In the noise of ambition, in the clamor of comparison, in the addiction to always needing more, you can spend your whole life climbing the ladder of success, only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall. Or you can pause, you can step back. You can ask yourself the question most people are too afraid to ask. What if I already have what I'm searching for? That's the kind of question the whisper brings. It doesn't promise more, it points to what's already here. It doesn't inflate your identity, it dissolves what's false. The soul does not scream, it doesn't hustle, it doesn't perform. It simply is. And to return to that state, to remember your original nature, is not the end of your journey. It is the awakening that changes how you walk it. The same life, the same people, the same circumstances, but no longer the same you. Because now you're listening. Now you're attuned. Now you don't need the shout, you trust the whisper. And trust that is the most radical act in a world addicted to control. To trust means you stop managing every outcome. You stop negotiating with life. You stop bargaining with God. You surrender not in weakness, but in profound wisdom. Because you've seen enough to know the river flows whether you swim or fight. And peace comes not by controlling the current, but by letting go of the illusion that you ever could. People say, but how do I know if it's the whisper or just my mind? You'll know. The whisper feels like home. It feels like truth stripped of performance. It doesn't rush you, it relieves you. It doesn't ask you to prove anything, it invites you to be. It may not speak in words, but it speaks in clarity. It arrives as a quiet knowing that needs no justification. The mind argues, the soul recognizes. And here is the great spiritual paradox. What you've been searching for is the one who's been looking. You are not a seeker, you are what is sought. And the whisper tries to return you to that awareness. But if you ignore it long enough, life will shout. It will shout through burnout, through emptiness, through disease, through relationships that break your heart open just wide enough to let the light in. It's not punishment, it's purification, not cruelty correction. You are not being tested by life. You are being shown where you are still asleep. And every shout is really a mirror, reflecting the places within you that still resist surrender. But you don't have to wait for that. You can choose presence before the pain. You can respond to the nudge before the fall. You can awaken without collapse. That's the mercy of the universe. It gives you thousands of chances to come home. It sends you signs in the smallest moments: a feather on the sidewalk, a stranger's smile, a line in a song that feels like it was written just for you. These are not coincidences, these are conversations. The whisper is always trying to speak through your life. But if your mind is too loud, you'll miss it. Let your life become a prayer, not of words, but of listening. A posture of openness, a willingness to be surprised by grace, because grace doesn't shout either. It simply arrives and softens everything it touches. It doesn't argue its case, it transforms. And the more you live from the whisper, the more you begin to see the world not as a place to conquer, but as a mystery to honor. You weren't sent here to fix everything, you were sent here to remember. To remember the truth that lives beneath all the doing, the you before the roles, the you before the expectations, the eternal spark that can never be dimmed by circumstance. The whisper speaks from that place. And when you live from there, you no longer react, you respond. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer fear, you trust. And slowly, the shouting fades. Not because life gets easier, but because you are no longer resisting it. You've stopped running. You've stopped blaming. You've stopped waiting for permission to be who you already are. And in that stillness, the whisper becomes your guide. And the more you trust it, the louder it becomes, not in volume, but in presence. It begins to shape your decisions. It begins to lead your life. There's nothing louder than a whisper that comes from God. It can silence every fear. It can dissolve every doubt. Not because the fear or doubt disappears, but because you stop identifying with them. You stop believing that your thoughts are who you are. You stop worshiping your emotions as facts. You begin to realize that you are the space they move through, not the content, but the container. This is the truth that liberates. You are not here to control the storm. You are here to become the calm inside it. And that calm, that center, that divine still point is the whisper. And once you return to it, you begin to live differently. You speak with intention. You move with grace. You love without needing return. You listen without needing to respond. You no longer need validation because you are validation. You are the proof of something holy. You begin to realize that life was never happening to you, it was always happening for you. Even the pain, especially the pain. Not because pain is divine, but because it strips away what is not. It dissolves the illusion that you were ever separate from love. It brings you to the edge of yourself so that you can finally see what you are beyond your name, your body, your narrative. And at that edge, in the silence, the whisper speaks again. You were never alone. There is a sacred intelligence moving through all things, through birth and death, through joy and sorrow, through beginnings and endings. It is not chaotic, it is orchestrated, but not by your ego, not by your plans. It moves with a rhythm that only surrender can hear, and the whisper is the beat of that rhythm. It's the quiet knowing that what falls away is not a loss, it is a return. What leaves is not rejection, it is redirection. But when you resist the whisper, life must speak louder. The job ends. The relationship breaks. The diagnosis arrives. Not to hurt you, but to shake you into awareness. To turn your eyes from distraction to devotion. To remind you that the treasure is never out there. You are not a mistake that needs correcting. You are a miracle that forgot its name. And every shout from life is really an echo of your soul saying, come back. And when you come back, you see differently. You no longer view your past as something to escape, but as something that brought you here. Every wound becomes a window. Every scar becomes a doorway. Not to bitterness, but to depth, to humility, to compassion. Because when you live from the whisper, even your pain becomes sacred. It softens you. It refines you. It teaches you to feel without drowning, to grieve without losing yourself, to be broken without being destroyed. People ask, but what if I miss the whisper? What if I've ignored it for too long? The whisper holds no resentment. It doesn't tally your absence. It simply waits. Like the ocean waits for the river to remember its way home, you can return in a moment with one breath, one prayer, one surrender, because the whisper was never gone, your attention was. And attention is the gateway to transformation. Begin to pay attention, not to what the world shouts, but to what your soul whispers. Pay attention to the pull that defies logic, to the peace that doesn't make sense, to the invitation that shows up without evidence. Because the soul doesn't need proof, it is proof. It is the evidence of something eternal living inside your temporary form. And it will never demand that you hustle to earn what you already are. This is the paradox of spiritual awakening. You lose everything that was never truly yours, and in doing so, you find what can never be taken. You lose your need to be right and gain the peace of being real. You lose your masks and find your face. You lose your urgency and discover timelessness. And all of this begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. The world is loud. It sells you fear, distraction, urgency, but the soul is still. It offers you presence, clarity, eternity, and the choice is always yours. Will you live from the noise